The 2024 n-Lorem Foundation holiday ornaments have arrived. With more than 150 unique drug discovery programs, personalization is a part of our mission at n-Lorem. Embrace the individuality of nano-rare patients by uploading your own photo to the back of the ornament. You can also bundle an ornament with the 2024 Nano-rare Patient Art Book. Best of all donations support n-Lorem's mission to discover, develop, and provide personalized ASO medicines to nano-rare patients for free, for life. Donate today.
This episode of the n-Lorem Patient Empowerment Program podcast is proudly sponsored by Hanjin Biotech. With more than 26 years of experience in the nucleic acid industry, Hanjin is a specialized CDMO and raw material supplier committed to providing high-quality and high-value products and services with the best-in-class lead times.
Hello and welcome to the n-Lorem podcast series, a series that focuses exclusively on patients now referred to as having nano-rare mutations. I'm Stan Crooke, and I'm the founder, chairman, and CEO of n-Lorem. n-Lorem is a nonprofit foundation that I initiated in January of 2020. Our mission at n-Lorem is to take advantage of the technology we created at Ionis Pharmaceuticals, Antisense technology, or ASO technology, to discover, develop, and provide experimental ASO treatments to nano-rare patients, and to do that for free, for life.
Today, what we are doing is a follow-up to the recently completed second colloquium on nano-rare patients and addressing some of the questions that have come to us during the colloquium and subsequently as just questions that have arisen post the colloquium. And to pepper me with questions, Amy Williford is our guest today. Amy, welcome and get at it.
Thank you. Here we are wrapping it up another great year at n-Lorem and approaching our 5-year anniversary. So this is a great time to kind of reconnect and talk about what the community is asking us. So what we wanted to do today is just get your thoughts on how the colloquium went. Like, this was our second year of the event and we had lots of lessons learned. So what do you think, how do you think the event went this year?
I was very pleased with it. And there's a number of topics that I would focus on. First, the venue. Thanks to the generosity of Biogen and many other sponsors, we were able to host the colloquium at the Marriott in Cambridge. I think that was a much more comfortable environment for our audience, and in particular the patients and families. A step forward in managing the special kind of audience that we have. It also gave us more space, and thanks to Luke Rosen and others, we had a special room for patients and families and so on, and I think that really helped people feel comfortable. So I was very pleased with the environment, and that environment gave us the space to handle a good many more on-site participants. So I was pleased with that. I was pleased with the overall level of sponsorship that we had, that the number of sponsors of the event continues to grow, indicates a growing interest in what we're doing. I was very pleased with the overall level of interest and turnout. We had more than 750 participants in the meeting this year, which is a significant increase from last year. And I think that's really important because one of our goals was to shine a bright light on the needs of patients with nano-rare mutations, and I think we're doing that. And the more that we do that, I think the more likely we can see others joining in this task of getting these patients treated as well as diagnosed, and the more opportunity we have to influence policy, because certainly there are a lot of policy changes that we'd like to see. I was pleased with the symposium itself. I thought every session added tremendous value and was unique in its own focus and way. The quality of the presenters was extraordinarily high. The quality of the participants in panels was extremely high. And the contributions of our patients and families to what we learned, and both at the intellectual level and at the emotional level, I think was very high and even higher than our first year. I was also pleased to take the time to really get into detail about the process that we use and how it works and why the process is so important and why industrialization of the process matters so much to our patients. And then I guess I would conclude by saying I was very pleased with the results that we could present. I think what we're achieving so far is spectacular, and the scale at which we're achieving it is something I'm very proud of. So all in all, I think a wonderful day and a half, and I shouldn't forget the reception, which once again was hosted by Hong Jin and by others. That opportunity to meet in a less formal setting, both scientists and physicians and patients and parents, bring all that together in one space, I think is something of unique value. So overall, I think it was a great second year for a colloquium, and I look forward to doing it every year.
So I think this year we were able to really highlight patient stories and really share with the community what we're observing in our patients. And that really shifted, I think, the tone and feel of the meeting this year. And it was just very inspiring to see the changes in these patients, even at very low doses, where we wouldn't expect to see any changes before we've reached a therapeutic dose. Were these observations expected when you started treating these patients?
Well, I think you already said it. They weren't. And we have a lot of experience with ASOs in the central nervous system and in other organs. And I think what's important is, first, that our record of safety is pristine. And the numbers of patients treated, the number of doses, the different organs being treated, the eye, the liver, the kidney, and the central nervous system, all of that says that if you know what you're doing and you make good quality ASOs and you dose them appropriately, we can do this safely. And I think that's a critical lesson that we should emphasize every time we talk to patients and families and practitioners. We're doing this and we're not adding side effects to the burdens that these patients experience. And then, particularly in the central nervous system, some of the observations are really stunning and very surprising. We're seeing profound benefit at low doses. We're seeing patients recover functions that they lost, which is new learning. It's teaching us that the CNS is much more plastic than we expected. And we're seeing patients gain new skills. We're seeing impressive effects in autism, which I think is really important because most of these CNS syndromes include some level of autism-type problems. And in a patient or two, we have evidence of improvement in autonomic function. Autonomic nerves are the nerves that control the visceral organs of the body, the liver, the kidney, the heart, the gut, and so on. And that's new knowledge for antisense that we can actually address problems that are autonomic nervous origin. I also think we're seeing safety and evidence of benefit in the eye and in the kidney. That opens the door for many more patients with eye, liver, and kidney mutations. And we need to expand to bring more of those patients into the treatment environment at n-Lorem. So I certainly am surprised that we can claim that 100% of the patients who are evaluable for treatment for benefit are benefiting, and that we're seeing the remarkable benefit that we're seeing at the doses that we're seeing with no evidence of safety issues. I think that's a great start. And our intention, of course, is to continue to be cautious, to be sure that we don't add side effects as a burden to our patients. And we're hopeful that we'll continue to see benefit in every patient. But I think to expect that to continue would be asking for more than medicines can do. One final thing I would say is we're not seeing benefit in patients who are very advanced. Patients who've had these mutations and been symptomatic all their life, who are 15, 17, and older, who are very advanced. And that's another great signal that says there is no patient who's so advanced that we should give up on them. That, to me, is a very, very fundamental thing to say to our patients and families.
And at the colloquium, we had over 15 patients on treatment at the end of October. Now here in mid-December, we're over 20 patients. Where do you expect the number of patients to be treated to go in next year?
I think the number of patients who will be treated next year is very dependent on funding. At the minimum, I believe we can add 20 to 20 plus patients, but we have the capability to do much more than that. I certainly would be disappointed if we weren't treating at least 20 more patients next year, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to raise sufficient funds that we can expand that number greatly. It is remarkable how much benefit we're achieving with how little expense, but it's still expensive, and we continue to need to constantly raise money from all the sources that we have available to us. It's important to us and to me personally that we provide treatment irrespective of whether the family has the means to support it or not. But that puts a burden on us to raise the money to do that, and we're doing our best.
So for people who are listening today, is there something that you could tell them that would allow them to help support us?
We're all in this together. We can't do it without our partners, our donors. We can't do it alone. We simply are unable to do it without support from everyone. And as I said at the colloquium last year, and then I amplified on it this year, this is a dream. This is a collective dream of the society of the nano-rare. It will be achieved only if the society, that is all of us involved, work together to fund it and to make it real. And so if you want us to do more, help us more. It's really that simple. And I think everyone can do something. I think every patient family, everyone involved should be a contributor. There should be no question about it. And every dollar matters. And I'll continue, and Rosanna and I will continue to contribute as much as we can. And we are pleased at the level of support that we've gotten. And we recognize that we need even more if we're to meet the demands that we are experiencing.
And every dollar adds up.
It does.
Any donation, there's no donation too small or, more importantly, too large, right?
And there's no person who lacks importance to n-Lorem. Every person, every patient, every family is important, and every dollar matters.
Were there any disappointments you had from the colloquium?
Not really. I thought it really went well. And I thought, as always, the patient's stories were deeply touching. But what really mattered to me is the patient's stories were full of optimism, benefit, hope. We must never allow hopelessness to be the theme for nano-rare patients. That has to end. There's every reason to be hopeful given the results that we were able to share. And we could see that in the patient's stories that were presented, the positives from both the physicians taking care of them, the patients and the families themselves. And now I think suffusing the society of the nano-rare, as it were, with a realistic sense of hope is an achievement of real import.
What do you think the most important things you've learned this year are? I mean, we've already talked about ASO performance and what we're seeing in patients.
Well, I think we can do this. We can do it repeatedly, we can do it safely, and we can do it effectively. That wasn't a given even 2 years ago. We can do it on scale. From a more scientific perspective, I think I'll repeat that in the central nervous system, we're seeing evidence of far more plasticity than any of us might have expected. And that means that our expectations perhaps can grow. Our expectations of changing the course of these lives may be able to expand to making even more remarkable differences. I think the earlier we are able to treat a patient, the more likely it is that we can bring benefit, and the greater the benefit. But no patient is too far along. That wasn't something we knew before. I think that we are developing a catalog of mutations and genes that cause these problems. I think within the next year or so, we'll have a pretty complete catalog of, at least in the central nervous system. Now we need to do the same in the eye and the kidney and the liver. And that's interesting. That's new information. And the correlations and lack of correlations of genotype and phenotype are teaching us things about health and disease, how a single variable like the introduction of one of these pathogenic mutations drives then these enormous shifts in these very pathways that control health and disease. We're learning those things. And I think the fact that we can address things like autonomic dysfunction with ASOs is big news. I think we're at just the beginning of learning all the things that nano-rare patients can teach us about health and disease. That's very exciting. And I guess finally that we're beginning to get many more repeat customers for the same ASO. That's also very good news for patients. That means that we can help more patients per dollar. And finally, on the regulatory front, that we continue to have the support of the FDA, and the FDA has shown willingness to approve INDs with more than one patient. That's important news because it means that we're proving that this is safe, and the FDA is responding and providing other additional avenues for us to help these patients. And the more patients we can help per ASO, the more patients we can help. So we're very early days. We're just beginning to learn. But it's very clear that what we will learn will be very fundamental and make a radical difference in how we think about health and disease altogether.
This year, we spent a lot of time at the colloquium going through the n-Lorem process in a lot of detail, and a lot of the people who run those various groups gave individual presentations. Do you think that you'll need to do that every year?
I hope not. I think we've tried to do it the first 2 years because we thought there was a lot of confusion, and we hope that others who may be thinking about trying to help some of these patients with ASOs are listening, because the processes we use are processes that are born out of millions of ASO experience and hundreds of thousands of patients' experience, and people should listen. But we've done that now, and so I'm hopeful next year we can be a little more streamlined in that, so that we can spend more time on what we're learning, what we're seeing in our patients, more time hearing from patients and families, and more time hearing from our partners and investigators and what the challenges in various institutions are. We certainly know, that particularly in the central nervous system, when we have to administer intrathecally, there are costs that these institutions have to worry about, and that's impeded our progress. And I think learning about that and trying to find sources of support for the clinical centers so that we can expand the number of clinical centers, particularly in the central nervous system, that can do that. In the other areas like liver, kidney, and eye, the costs are much more manageable, and it's just a unique need to have a special room where you can administer intrathecally, and for younger patients provide anesthesia. That adds just quite a bit of expense to the central nervous system treatment. So I think we'll spend much more time next year on economic models, progress that we're making in sustainability, and these sorts of things. At least I hope so.
So AI is a big buzzword this year. How do you feel about incorporating AI into n-Lorem?
I feel like we started doing it about 35 years ago. I think AI is a sophisticated way of taking advantage of past knowledge. And what makes it work is the quality of the data and the breadth of the data, and we have that. And so we're using it every day as we design ASOs and so on, and we continue to run experiments to help us do this better. I think AI really takes on great power when you couple it to hypothesis testing experiments, and that's what we're doing. And so in that sense, we're AI-driven, but we are idea-driven as well. I think only when you couple hypothesis testing science with historical data analysis, which is what AI is, do you bring the full power of scientific inquiry together. And that's exactly what n-Lorem is doing.
A new topic this year was sustainability, and you kind of introduced your thoughts that you had from the beginning of the formation of n-Lorem on sustainability and how we could reach that. Does your recently announced new deal with GondolaBio tie into this strategy?
Certainly does. It reflects the strategy. And given that we just began implementing the strategy in July of the year, I think it reflects quite a bit of interest and real success, and we're working very hard to continue to take advantage of that. Our job is to identify all the sources of dollars that might be used to help patients and go get them. And our success to date is a testament to the fact that we had a plan, we're executing the plan, and that plan included seeking dollars from every source that we could find, including these commercial entities that take advantage of the knowledge and skills that we have at n-Lorem, which we use every day to treat nano-rare patients. And all of these transactions are consistent with and a part of the process to treat nano-rare patients. And so it's a good step. Now we need to do more. And I think it suggests that we have a lot of reason to be optimistic that can be a meaningful source of income for us and a source of dollars to treat more patients.
That's great. I think next year, I wonder what our agenda will be for the meeting.
Yeah, well, stay tuned.
Well, we'll have lots of great progress to share, I'm sure. I think when you look back over the last 5 years, would you have expected to be where you are today with the foundation?
No. I thought we might be treating a handful of patients, maybe a couple, 3. So no, I think the demand has greatly exceeded any expectation I had. Our accomplishments are extraordinarily greater than anything I dreamt that we would be able to do. And that's been a real privilege, I think, for all of us involved. And it gives us a lot of optimism that in the coming years, we'll be able to do much more.
Currently, we're treating in the U.S. Do we have plans to get to Europe and other countries?
We have hopes. We're working hard at it, but like everything, it has to do with dollars, people, bandwidth. And if we take dollars and time to open a site in Europe, that's dollars and time we don't have to spend on somebody who needs the medicine today in the U.S. And so it's a real balancing act. And we are very hopeful, but I can't promise anything outside the U.S. until we have more success in fundraising.
I think that was all the questions we had. I mean, is there anything that you would like to say that we haven't covered?
We're thrilled to be where we are. We are privileged to be helping the patients we're helping, and we appreciate every bit of support that we've gotten from every individual and every organization who care about this community of untreated, uncared for, undiagnosed patients. They need our help. Join us.
Thank you, Stan. This has been a wonderful discussion. And I think if there's other questions that people have, please reach out to us, podcast@n-Lorem.org, and we'd be happy to answer your questions on another podcast or individually. Thank you.
For the n-Lorem Foundation, N of 1 doesn't mean alone because every patient matters. Hope for nano-rare patients and their families has never been more within reach. Visit n-Lorem.org today to donate and make hope possible.
n-Lorem is a nonprofit committed to discovering and providing personalized experimental treatments for free for life to patients with genetic diseases that affect 1 to 30 patients worldwide, referred to by n-Lorem as nano-rare. Many of these patients progress and die without ever achieving a diagnosis. This is where n-Lorem comes in. They do the impossible by providing hope, and for those that they can help, free lifetime treatment. For more information about n-Lorem or today's episode, visit n-Lorem.org. Any questions can be sent into podcast@n-Lorem.org. Search n-Lorem on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook to connect with us. Please rate and review the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. This truly helps us climb the charts and allows others to find the show. This podcast is hosted by Dr. Stan Crooke. Our videographer is John Magnuson of Mighty One Productions. Our producers are John Magnuson and Kira Deneen of DNA Today. Thank you for listening.